So, welcome back out of the lunch. Welcome back to the first session. Um, I would like to welcome you on our session today on the future of the digital identity, an idea which was brought forward by our valued partner Philip Morris. Um, and we're going to dive right into it with a very interesting and insightful panel that we're having here. So my goal for today, since I'm totally not an expert on digital identity, I want to learn something about this here. First, I want to do with you a small overview of the current state of the technology and the industry. I want, secondly, better understand the core issues and the opportunities at hand. And thirdly, from our experts here, we would like to hear an outlook, what we can, as ecosystem, expect in the next months and years, and why this is relevant for us. When I talk about us, I mean our panel, and I start on my right side with Kujal Janjit. He's the head of digital at Philip Morris International. He is the one who brought us together. Thank you, Kujal, for doing that. Before he joined Philip Morris, he had several various positions throughout the industry. He worked for Procter & Gamble, for Logitech, Morgan Stanley, the University of St. Gallen, just to name a few. He holds a bachelor from the University of Mumbai and a master's degree from the San Jose State University. Next to Kujal, we have Michael. Michael Born is the founder and CEO of Pixel Vision. He is not just a one-time founder, but a serial founder. I think you've already founded 3 companies, including Pixel. Very cool. He's also been at the University of St. Gallen, just like you, Kujal, and me as well. You're holding both a bachelor and a master's degree from the HSG. And then on our very right side of the panel, we have Jean-Marie. I never asked how to pronounce your name. Wiederlank. He's the head of innovation at SwissSign, and you've already worked in various positions around the topic of digital identity, cybersecurity, identity and access management for over 20 years for various companies, and now for also in the public sector. And you graduated with a master's degree from the Université de Côte d'Azur. Very beautiful. So, Kujal, when I told people before that I'm going to moderate this panel, they first asked me, why you? You have no idea about this topic. And then they asked me, secondly, Philip Morris, why are they caring about the topic of digital identity? Can you introduce us? Can you enlighten us? Why is this an important topic for you?
Hi, everyone. So for us at Philip Morris, if you don't know, as a company, we are selling tobacco and nicotine products. And we as a company are trying to move towards smoke-free products as such. And that's where we are trying to engage with our consumers online, because that's where our consumers are moving, and that's the consumer's expectation as such as well. So when we engage or sell our products to our consumers, knowing that those consumers are adults, it's very critical for us. So that's why identifying these consumers and knowing that they are not youth and they are actually adults making purchases, for us it's a very, very critical topic. And overall within the company and even outside, you would hear like youth access prevention, which even our CEO is constantly talking about, that we need to ensure that our products never end up in the hands of youth. So for us, it's a very critical topic. We've been following it and implementing it since a while in our company.
Thank you, Kujal. Michael, I would like to follow up with you. You have a history in the topic. I think your previous company was also kind of something in a similar topic that you founded. So you're thinking about this and working on this topic for quite a while. Why do you think the relevance for digital identity is currently very high, and why should we talk about it now? Why are we talking about it today here?
Yeah, thanks for the question. For us it was relevant actually like even for 10, 12 years ago. So I do identity verification since 2012 when we had the chance to, we had actually a device, a scanning computer mouse, and we used this at the point of sale of Sunrise to identify people, to read the passports, and also to resolve some of the fraud problems that they had. Because even then, people would walk into stores and with a fake identity, walk out with 5 latest iPhones. So this was even then a relevant topic. With my company now, Pixel Vision, we do this since 2017. We started with the telcos, so obviously, like there, you need to identify people fast, effective, efficiently. You want to also address new customer segments, those people who don't want to walk into a store anymore to sign up for a mobile phone subscription. So it's, I think a very important element that you can actually create more business. And yeah, same applies, of course, to all different industries, from financial services, banking, insurance, crypto. So you want to know who you transact with in the digital world. And as more and more everything moves into the digital space. So everything you do today, I think you do digitally nowadays. So identity as such becomes the basis and the core and the key driver, I think, of the whole digitization. Because if you don't know who you transact with, you have a problem.
So, and now we're here at the startup days, and of course the question is at hand is, what is now the relevance for our audience, for our ecosystem here? Maybe to all of you the question, what do you think are now current issues or current business opportunities, so to say, where innovation is sought in the question of digital identity? Jean-Marie, we can start with you.
So, hello. I think first we have to take into consideration the fact that you have some regulations which are ongoing, and you see, for example, the EIDAS 2 regulation, the EU regulations, which came into force in 2024, which will impose the member states to deliver a national EID. So each of the 27 member states must deliver a digital wallet in Europe with a digital identity. So it's an obligation, it will be there. Also in Switzerland, as you know, so in the second semester of 2025, the citizens will have to vote for this EID law, knowing that there's a referendum that just passed. They've collected just a little bit more than 50,000 votes, signatures, let's say. I think one important point is that when we talk about identity, it's not just who you are, your names, your last name, first name, etc. It's really all the credentials or the attributes that are around your identity. So for example, your diplomas, the fact you can prove that your employer is the post or Swiss sign, certificate of residency, etc. So it's really a big ecosystem that is being opened at the moment. And I'd say the fact that we go into this digital world, also the information also will be more trustworthy, right? Because it will be signed, digitally signed, right? Those credentials, it means I can really prove that my diploma comes from the University of Geneva and from a real university, and that the diploma, my credential that I provide to a verifier, to an employer, is really trustworthy. And this is done by the standard cryptography, for example.
Would you like to add?
Question was innovation, right?
Yeah, the opportunity for innovation.
Yeah, so there's, of course, lots and lots of opportunities for innovation. In the same time, I think we're standing right in the beginning. So I mean, before iPhone came up, first of all, you wouldn't have had any idea that there's going to be an iPhone or something like that. But also, you wouldn't know what an app is, and you would have no idea that there's tens of thousands of apps there. So it's kind of even hard, like also with digital identity, to imagine what will be there. But maybe to take a step back, of course, when we started, we just had to quickly verify who the guy is, roughly. Now, of course, the innovations which come is that, AI, the rise of AI poses a lot of room for innovation, but also threats. So currently, for example, we're working on deepfake detection algorithms, so that as such is an innovation field. Then I've seen that at some point in our company, I've understood that, just identifying people is maybe not enough anymore. Suddenly you need to identify businesses. You need, in the future, probably to identify objects, maybe the self-driving cars or something, who need to communicate with the place the car wants to go to unlock maybe the door. So there's a lot of things coming there. And then, of course, the digital identity will become, the wallets will be there. So all these credential businesses, and that's where I say it's kind of hard to know what use case will really be in demand. Will it be the university use case, or are people fine with sharing a PDF and the employer is also fine, or will this really be a use case which drives? So I think there's a lot of innovation ahead, but to know exactly where, kind of difficult to say. For us, of course, also the innovation in the area of digital signature is super important. So even 5 years ago, we knew digital signature has been there for like some 10, 15 years, so not new technology as such, but to know when the inflection point will be there, kind of hard. And we see it now just taking off, so we have much more demand for digital signatures, qualified electronic signatures. That's why we invest in this area. So I would say the innovation drivers, which I see right now, is basically increasing fraud, of course, increasing digitization, the reusable identities coming up, and digital signatures. So these are the 3 areas where I see there's lots of innovation coming. And I didn't even mention blockchain and all these things which are based on the digital identities.
My colleagues here have already highlighted the key, right? So going on to how startups can benefit, right? Because there are all these new technologies coming up, and consumers continue to move digital, like online. So more and more consumers, more and more activities are being conducted online. So it becomes super critical to have this one tackled. There are new technologies, and AI is an enabling technology, but it also creates that problem of deep fakes and how good they're getting at it. So how can we use that technology to identify these kind of deep fakes? So it's also about like startups can really develop solutions here, and for companies like ours, it's more about collaborating on such kind of problems or opportunities. Like you can look at AI from both the lens. So for startups, it's more about tackling these kind of problems, leveraging all these new technologies and use cases which are popping up as such.
I just very recently, because we were also thinking, where should we go? You're a startup, and as a scale-up, they say, so we're not that small anymore, but still, we're not Philip Morris, right? So in our situation, you can do a bet maybe once, twice, 3 times, and each bet costs maybe some 2-3 millions. And so it shouldn't go wrong too many times, because otherwise you're out of money. So I think try to think very clearly where to go. So I made this slide, and actually there's like 5, 6, 7 growth fields. This can be KYB, this can be, of course, digital signature, which we do. This can be the credential business. This can be deepfake detection algorithms. Can be image, face
liveness detection.
Sorry, age estimation. I wanted to say liveness detection, of course. So there's many fields, but the interesting thing on this slide was that, of course, I also have a look at the markets, and each of these markets grow with more than 20% per year. So that's actually kind of shows that there's a lot of innovation in this space.
Yeah, I read some numbers somewhere a couple of weeks ago where it showed like the digital identity market. It stood a little over $40 billion globally, and 12 years down the line, it will cross $400 billion. So it's like a big jump. So the opportunities there are tremendous for companies in this space, because it's only going to grow.
When we're sticking with different technologies, what you all said in your beginning statement was that trust is the issue at hand. It's the most important thing for all these technologies. You have to trust them, you have to trust the outcome, and the end user, the customer, has to trust to give his or her data to the technology. I was asking myself, what are the technologies to use to create this trust with the end consumer? And is it in the end only technology that can provide trust, or do you need also different design principles, communications? how would you create trust? And I would like to start with Jean-Marie because you're doing it from like the public side, and therefore people would trust you probably the most, so to say.
Yeah, just a bit to complete a bit the identity definition, let's say. So we talk about personal identities for people, and there's also machines. You have to trust the machines, right? All the IoT stuff. And also the legal entities, organizations, right? So we have to take into consideration all those types of identities. When it comes to technologies, so like I said, like for example, eIDAS2, they clearly specify the roles of the QTSPs in Europe, right? So QTSPs are qualified trust service providers, and they provide services such as the e-signature, like Michael said, the qualified electronic signature, right, which is the equivalent of a handwritten signature in the physical world. This is heavily regulated, right? So you have to be audited. You have to respect some technical specifications, etc. It's quite difficult to acquire those to be certified in this area. So that will be true for the digital identities, for the digital signatures, TLS certificates, right? Well, to protect your websites, you must buy a certificate. So in the end, yes, to come back to your question, sorry, it's not only technology, it's also the process, the processes, the bodies that govern all of that, right? So for example, and the regulation. So for example, you have the ZERTES law in Switzerland, you have the eIDAS2 law in Europe. For the TLS, for the domain website protection, that's governed by the CAP, so it's the browsers actually, right? And technology, so in eIDAS2, like I said, the main technology is the fact that you will seal the verifiable credentials, right? So the trustworthiness in this ecosystem, one way to bring it, and it's mentioned in the eIDAS2, is that you will sign, for example, the verifiable credential issuer, such as a university that will issue a diploma in a digital format. He will sign this piece of data, right? So in the end, the person who receives it, the holder, and also the verifier, let's say an employer, he can verify that the data is authentic, right? And again, so to seal an information, to make it authentic and trustworthy, you go into a process indeed, because for us as a QTSP, so SwissSign is a QTSP in Switzerland, to give a seal to an organization that will issue VCs and will sign them, we must authentify the organization, right? So we must check, do I have in front of me a legal representative of this organization? Is this organization really existing in a business registry, for example, or registre du commerce? So you go through all this process that is regulated, governed by the Swiss law or EU law, and then only then you can issue, you can give a seal to an organization that will use it to sign the credentials, which are then trustworthy. So right, you have the law, you have the processes, and you have the technology. All of that brings the trust.
Just a question to you, Jean-Marie, like,
Please.
if I may.
That was not planned.
No, but you're in this credential business, and you mentioned this university case, and this is just one out of hundreds of cases, of course. But and I'm sure, like SwissSign or Post has a business case and the view on. So when do you see this actually taking off really? Because I would argue that actually the world has worked. For hundreds of years, based on I apply for a job and I might provide my university diplomas and it's based on maybe trust and maybe there's some fraud that's understood. But would people and companies care? And when are these systems in place? I mean, maybe to give a bit more time to think. I found it interesting with the COVID certificate, for example. There I saw like it for the first time kind of thing that everyone suddenly had this certificate there and the QR code and you could actually check and the credential. Yes, I had the vaccination. So there, yeah, it came very fast, if you want. But do you see this taking off? And should I, as a startup or a scale-up, invest now or in 3 years?
So the first credentials I believe that we will have, it has to do really your identity, your pure core identity, in a sense who you are, what's your name, what's your last name, first name, sex, and birth date, right? Because, and why do I think this will take off is because it will simplify also the user experience, right? So we have to put we always say we put the citizen or the end user at the center. He has to be first. And me, if I want to let's say use a qualified electronic signature, I have to register to such a e-signature service, right? So I have to get identified, right? Which is a burden, right? Because I have to show my ID, prove some liveliness, do some liveliness checks, etc., etc. So that's one case. But then if I want to, I don't know, order a criminal record, I have to again prove my identity, right? And same for the digital health record, right? The patient dossier. Again, here I have to go through an identity process. So each time I have to prove my identity. And sometimes it's not even secure because I even have to scan sometimes my passport, send it by mail to I don't know whom, comes back by the post physically, right? So it's not an easy user experience, right? So bringing the EID will likely simplify this user experience. So the first use case is really to prove your identity, to then access to some critical services that require that you are identified. This will be, I would say, the first use case.
Sorry. Yeah, if you would like to answer, I would go to Kushal before otherwise.
Just wanted to add something also. I think when you ask about trust, yes, the technologies are of course important. So of course, like if technology can't identify if the guy is alive in front of the camera or if it's a fraud, then it's a problem. But yeah, so technology is of course important. But I think just as important is also questions, and we all have experienced that, who actually has access to the data. So we had a vote in Switzerland, as you probably all know. So the Swiss population didn't like that private people would create and issue a digital identity. So it's now with the government, for example. So all these process questions and who has access to what is quite important if we talk of trust. And then on the other hand, the convenience. So I'm still puzzled by all these discussions we had during COVID, for example, about, can I be tracked with this certificate? And at the same time, people don't seem to mind at all to have a Facebook account and a Google account, and they do just a login always with that and completely trackable. So this convenience versus data privacy and so on is quite an interesting kind of field of, Spannung.
Yeah. And that builds the perfect bridge that I wanted to build. So thank you for that. Because, Kusha, you want to sell products. And you want to use this tool to make the customer experience, as Jean-Marie said, as easy as possible. And in the end, people should buy your tobacco products or so. However, you're at the, so to say, critical industry with this. The most use cases that we also see on your homepage when we see what are you providing your solutions for. It's for tobacco, it's for alcohol, it's for online gambling, it's for pornography. So all the stuff where people care a lot about privacy. They don't want the data about the usage of these products out there in the world. So how do you manage this trade-off between privacy, security, and customer experience, or the seamlessness, easiness to use at the end?
It's a delicate balance, right? Like between all these. But one of the key for us, the foundational, is to ensure people are adults. So they're above 18. So that's one of the key data point that we are looking for when we are validating the age of a consumer. So that's where the new bills which are going on, the EU Digital Identity Wallet or the Swiss EID, which might come up, the self-sovereign identity part within it, which is proposed, where it's like the consumer can decide to share only that he or she is above 18. instead of the exact date of birth. So for corporations like ours and in general, what is essential is we need to validate they're above 18 and not take unnecessary data which we don't need to collect on our side. So such kind of technologies will help us in the future as well to even further the trust with our consumers. So we use these technologies to identify and validate these core things that we are trying to, and we're looking forward for the newer technologies which are coming up and how we can integrate them and minimize the data that we collect from consumers, which helps then again building the trust that we are not interested in knowing everything. We are interested in really getting to know the key data point about you in order to sell our products as such.
Is this for you more a strategic thing that you think, okay, I just want to have the minimum data sets required, or do you actually have, evidence and in terms of numbers that you know that your customers or the consumers actually care whether they give you just the age or the full identity document with the name and much more information? So is this fact-driven, or is this more a strategic way you want to go?
So we didn't do any study exactly on this, but in general, if you talk to even people here in the room, if you ask would you want to share just 18 plus or your exact date of birth, I think we can do a quick poll to see how many would be interested in just sharing 18 plus instead of their full date of birth. So it's quite a lot. So in general, so we didn't need to do a study for this part. It's more we want to ensure we collect the data that we can use in order to serve our consumers as such with our services. So yeah.
Makes perfect sense. I was just trying to find out, does it work without, if you didn't do this, or will people really care that much? Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
It helps with the building of trust, right? That was the key. If we as corporations proactively show that we are interested in validating certain data points about you in order to serve you the products that we want to sell, it goes towards the part of building trust. So how do we continue building trust of our consumers? And this is one of the ways.
Yeah, and if I may add, so it is said, it's quite commonly said that this digital wallet will enable this data minimization, is what we're talking about, right? So I don't have to pass my birth date, but I only have to communicate the fact I'm above 18, right? So this is called zero knowledge proof, ZKP, how to say it. So it's good in terms of data privacy, right? But of course, there are some challenges, and I think it's part of your next questions, but there is also this unlinkability item that cryptographers are working on, because it's not that easy to be anonymous on the web. But even already now, with what the technologies we have, I mean, we are, as you know, we are traced, right, by looking your how you call it, your digital empreinte on the web, right? Yeah, not fingerprint, but whatever. So, and this is a requirement from also the citizens that we remain, we should be able to be anonymous when I order alcohol, when I do gambling, etc. That will be one of the channels that can be used, one of the way we can use a digital wallet to just pass an attribute that say I'm above 18 and this attribute will be trustworthy. That's one way, but you have, of course, other ways. Huh? So you'll have multiple ways to communicate the fact you're above 18, etc. So that, as you know, the facial recognition, right, with AI, just by looking at your face and training a model, they are able to say, oh, this guy is above 18 at plus minus 6 months. So this is also another way to prove you're above 18.
So all of you already mentioned the various regulatory frameworks that we're currently facing or that are out there. So in Switzerland, we're talking about the EID, and Jean-Marie, you're working with the on the SWIU, so the Swiss Identity Wallet. Yep. If I get it correctly, there is the already mentioned EIDAS and EIDAS 2.0 in the EU. And then we're just within Europe. And then there's the global ecosystem. And when we're talking about startups or companies that want to work in this field or are already working in this field, from your experience, especially Kushal and Michael, how is it working with these various different regulatory frameworks, starting from Switzerland with our very own, together with the European one, and then with global frameworks?
Yes, it is complex because it's not just that you have many different regulations in place, they're also changing over time. And in different countries, you also then have, different standards, sometimes European standards, sometimes country standards, sometimes you also have the different departments of the government applying different standards, and even worse, not knowing exactly towards which standard they should lean. So it's really kind of a moving thing, so which makes it quite complex. As a young company, if you just start, I think it's almost impossible to kind of have all these certifications. So the way we did it is basically we started with an SDK, so a software development kit, which is kind of a little Lego block, which we would give to our customers, and they would then be responsible that they're compliant with the various laws. And then, of course, the big step was when we did offer the SaaS service. Then suddenly you have all this complexity like ISO 2701 certification, for example, because you then start to have data, then the whole personal data laws, and then one step more when you do qualified electronic signatures. So there's we just did the KPMG audit for CERTES and IDAS. So this is always investments in north of 100,000, and if you also calculate the internal cost, it very quickly adds up. So you can't do this as a super small startup, or you need to be well financed. But there's no way around it. So of course, we make these investments because the topic also matters. So data privacy, trust is of course key, and if you can't offer this, we don't have a reason to exist, if you want. So we make these investments. I have my own data privacy lawyer in-house, even like So you're forced to do this, but you have to have a certain minimum size as a company. Also the CISO, for example, these are all people, they cost money. So you have a minimum cost base to maintain this enterprise business in a regulated space.
For us, we are a global company, right? And regulations are very different in each of the countries as such. So what we tend to do is we partner with tech providers in order to ensure that we are following the highest possible compliance with the regulations, and many times even more, because PMI also has internally certain marketing rules as such that we have created, which are even stringent than the laws most of the times in the country. So we work with tech providers who are actually able to provide us these services as such. But if you look at the developments, right, like what we were discussing just now, the EU Digital Identity Wallet, which is aiming to kind of streamline this across the 27 member states. So these kind of implementations would help ease up our compliance and save on costs as such as well. Because you can imagine each country being so different, what are the trusted sources that we can use for validating the age of these consumers. So it's very complicated landscape currently, very fragmented, and this kind of initiative by EU would help. And then the interesting question would be how the Swiss EID would work with this European digital wallet. And then it goes broader, right? Then you look at US, you look at the biggest countries in Asia, how all this would work together. And then in the end, it's the user adoption. If users are not using this, it'll just stay as one of the technologies, but it's like, how do we drive that user adoption as such as well? So there are so many. So currently, like to answer your question in short, it's very fragmented. And these kind of initiatives which are up in the pipeline would help us streamline and help with easing up the compliance.
Jean-Marie, what can we expect? So if I know it correctly, the EIDAS will be in charge or empowered by October 26. and you're working until something like 27 with the Swiss solution. So what is up in the next few years?
So I think indeed there's the EU regulated world in terms of identity, and Switzerland is in the middle of that. So the Swiss system will have to be compatible as well, interoperable. But then also there's the rest of the world, like the US with the Google Wallet, etc., which is less regulated. Because in the end, what do I want to do? Me as a startup, maybe I might want to sell some services, some products online. I don't need a super verified EID, a certified wallet like the EU wants to do. I mean, a Google Wallet is good enough, right? So even in the US, I mean, you can pass the TSA airport checkpoints using your Google Wallet and your digital identity. So they find it secure enough to even pass airport gates, right? So in the end, yes, you'll have a complex ecosystem. Likely what will be needed in the middle is some kind of gateway that will broker all those systems, right? Whether I have a SUI wallet, or have a EU wallet coming from Italy, France, etc., or a Google wallet. In the end, depending on what's the regulation. So, for example, like I said, if I want to sell a secure email, an SMIME certificate, there's a regulation behind, or there's a law or some rules I have to follow, me as a QTSP. Maybe they will allow me to use an EID in a Google Wallet, right? But this has nothing to do with the EU. It has to do with the browsers, the CAB forum, as we call it. They are defining the rules, right? So there, a Google Wallet and the digital identity might be enough for me as an end user to order an SMIME certificate to have an email encryption. So you'll have a hybrid ecosystem. Likely you'll need a brokering system in the middle because you have different formats, you have to translate also, and also you have to take into consideration that some businesses, also the legacy systems, like, I don't know, the cantons, etc., that have big systems. Like in Switzerland, for example, they will be forced to accept the EID, the Swiss EID, right? But to change a legacy system, an old IT system, so that it can understand the new world, the credentials, the wallets, etc., it's not going to be easy for them. So this is where we might want to do an interface between the new world and the old world.
So, looking at the clock, we don't have much time left. Therefore, I would like to open up to the audience if there are any questions to our panel. Over here. Microphone is coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the... Okay, wonderful. Thanks for the insights. And I think we tackled a lot of very interesting topics at the end of standardizations and forming global standards. What we haven't talked about yet are the big software companies like Microsoft, IBM, who are owning at the core the data points to verification. So when we look in past histories about standardization wars, it's about executing power in these kind of ecosystems. So what kind of dynamics do you see in the ecosystem, like taking a broader perspective of the big IBMs, Microsoft, Oracles coming into the game of, applying standards which will be then, broadened?
Who would like to answer?
I mean, we've talked a little bit about Google, so Google is quite strong, as you know. But likely for Google wallets to be able to interface with EU services, they won't have any choice than to follow the rules, right? For some of the governmental services, at least. And by the way, at least from what I know, Google, etc., they are part of the large-scale pilots in Europe, right? So they are watching to see if at some point they will need to get their wallet certified as well, right? Compatible with the EU laws. Now for Microsoft and IBM, I don't know. Microsoft has also verified identities, credentials, etc., but it's, I would say, it's proprietary, right? Normally.
Yeah, I think there's probably more qualified people to talk in tech detail about it. But what I perceive is that basically, of course, Europe has the regulatory power to make some rules where the global players should adhere to. But actually, we're also very dependent on the chips and on Apple and Google, because they control what's inside the phones. So how this battle will end, I don't know. So I kind of, I'm not the expert there, but I see that maybe just they're in a very strong position, and maybe from a regulatory perspective, the EU can put a counterweight there, but I don't really know.
And for us as corporations, the idea is, as PMI, we go with whatever framework has been authorized by the regulatory authorities, right? Like, it might be American, it might be European, but what the government thinks can be trusted. As such, for us, that's what matters. So let's see how this space evolves, because it's very interesting, because different parts of the world, they are creating their own. So which one would end up in the next few years as the one? Let's see.
Any more questions? Yes.
One you were talking about, thank you. You were talking about IDs for traveling. How far do you think the ID is going to be able to go? Because if you look into traveling, you have your ID, you have your passport, you have a visa. Do you think we'll be able to go all the way? Is it going to replace every single step because of this authorization process? Or is it meant to stop at a certain point?
Yeah, so good question. So for the transportation, like for air traveling, right, planes, etc. So there is the IATA working on this, and they are working on a digital traveling credential, which will be worldwide recognized, right? So even there, we have working groups working on that, and IATA obviously represents all the airplane companies, all the transportation is quite big, right?
In travel, I think we even see it today, that you travel without, basically, I think you still are obliged to own and have a passport and so on, but you just go through the gates with face verification, and this will be changed now. So how fast, I can't tell, because all the different countries sometimes have different rules, and we've also seen this in IDAS. It was a bit of a painful experience that you have a European kind of framework, and then everyone kind of does little things. But no, I think we're going to see this, that you can just travel with your face. And I believe also it's going to be accepted by people, because I believe usually convenience beats privacy.
Yes, it's true, because you want to travel. I mean, airports are forced to improve their processes, their onboarding processes, the gates. You have to pass them faster, and those technologies like the facial recognition stuff is there to improve to be faster, in those onboarding.
Okay, I see already outside people are gathering for coffee, so we have to close this up. And I would like to know from all of you the very easy question for the end. When you look at the ecosystem, at the industry, and we have in mind we have a lot of investors here and people who are looking for entrepreneurial opportunity, what are the indicators people should look at, or the key developments in the industry, in the technology, that could be like a pivot, that could become the transformational development, like you described it earlier, Michael, with the so-called iPhone moment, or that it's just staying in technology to order a birth certificate in the future? What are the key developments people should have an eye on?
So I think of two. So one is, of course, the whole tech, and especially the deepfake threat, if you want. So where does that go, and will technology be able? It's kind of a cat and mouse game. will technology be able to solve what technology creates in terms of deepfake attacks? Or will it actually maybe turn around, that you don't try to tell something is a deepfake, but you turn it around and you prove that something is real? So where does this question go? And the other big question I think everyone has, and we also have, is this new bright future of wallets and the credential business, and maybe also decentralized versus not decentralized. So what will really win in the long term? And of course, for my company, it's quite important, because either we keep on verifying documents and do this on a case-by-case basis, or we rather build technology which of the new world, if you want. So when is this happening? This, I think, is a key question investors should ask.
Completely. Like, you tackled the ones which I was going to say as well. Like AI being the biggest, we discussed quite a bit around the wallets, as such, interoperability. But in the end, what it boils down to is like, what are consumers adopting as such? So this is something to keep a close eye on, which is the one which starts picking up. Because that would be
Go where the market goes. Jean-Marie?
Yeah, maybe one is the content authenticity on the web. So like the videos, is it trustworthy? Is it authentic? So Adobe is working on such a credential to prove the trustworthiness. And also one technology point I like is the big browsers also are working on an API. It's called a digital credential API. So this is like from one website you can interface to a wallet and request for some request credentials. Right, so these are some of the trends I see.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our panel, Jean-Marie, Michael, Kushal.
Thank you.